She dumped me with one cold message. I quietly made a move that shook her whole plan and sent her lawyer into meltdown mode. I can still picture the exact second my whole world turned upside down. I was standing in line at the grocery store, just holding a basket filled with random stuff, frozen lasagna, some scented trash bags, nothing important, really. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw her name. Rachel. My fiancée. The woman I thought I'd spend my life with. Or at least, that's what I believed. I tapped the message without thinking, expecting something simple, maybe a note about dinner plans or a question about who we were inviting to the wedding. But instead, I got hit with words that knocked the air out of me. Wedding's off. Expect a call from my lawyer. That was it. No explanation. No emotion. Not even a question mark or exclamation point. Just a cold period at the end, like I was a contract she was canceling. I stood there in shock, not moving. The cashier had to call me twice before I realized it was my turn. I paid for my things on autopilot, drove home in total silence, and just sat in my driveway for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. No tears. No yelling. Just silence. The only thing I texted back was, "As you wish." And I meant it. That one sentence said everything. It wasn't just the wedding that was over. It was her way of saying, "Don't call me. Don't message me. My lawyer will take care of it." I wasn't just being dumped, I was being thrown away like I didn't matter. Like she had all the power. But she overlooked one key detail. See, just a few days before, Rachel and I had signed the early paperwork to apply for a mortgage together. It was for a beautiful townhome in a brand new development just outside of Seattle. She was the one who picked it out. She already had the whole place decorated in her mind. She even bragged to her friends that it was basically hers already. But nothing was finalized yet. And more importantly, we weren't married. So technically, I was still free to walk away. And that night, before I even took off my coat, I opened my laptop, logged into the bank's mortgage portal, and canceled my application. 3 clicks. That's all it took. And just like that, the whole deal collapsed like a flimsy house of cards. Now, maybe you're thinking that was a little petty. And yeah, maybe it was. But after 3 years of building a future together, after everything I gave up, including turning down a great job in Chicago just so we could live close to her family, it wasn't about being petty. It was about keeping my dignity. Still, I didn't see what was coming next. Not even 2 days later, I was sitting on my couch eating leftover lasagna when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, so I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, I got the message. "Hello, this is Kelsey Brooks, attorney for Ms. Rachel Morgan. We urgently request a call back regarding your recent mortgage withdrawal, as this action may constitute breach of contract or financial interference." She wanted me to call back right away. I just laughed. Urgently request? Funny how they didn't sound so cold and detached now. I didn't return the call. I just waited. And sure enough, the calls kept coming. Then the emails started. Each one a little more frantic than the last. Clearly, they hadn't seen this coming. Rachel probably figured I'd be shattered. Maybe even begging her to come back. But I wasn't. I was done. The next day, I got a call from a mutual friend, Jenna. She sounded uneasy. "Hey, did you really pull out of the house deal?" "Yeah," I said. "Okay, because Rachel's losing her mind. She already ordered furniture and told her parents they'd have a guest room." I wanted to say, "Not my problem," but I held back. No need to come off like a jerk even though I had every right to. Then Jenna said something that actually made me laugh out loud. She says you're being vindictive. That you're doing this just to hurt her. But that wasn't it. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just wasn't going to play the fool anymore. What Rachel didn't realize, and what no one else knew yet, was that I'd started to sense something was off weeks before she pulled the plug. There were little red flags. Late-night texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Work meetings that always popped up at weird times. And the way conversations would stop when I walked into a room. I noticed all of it. I just didn't want to believe it. But now that everything was falling apart, I was finally starting to see her for who she really was. So I stopped reacting and started paying attention. I didn't answer her lawyer. I didn't try to fix anything. I went quiet. I let them stew in their own confusion. Let them sit with the silence. Let them wonder what I was thinking. And in that quiet, things started to come to light. 2 days later, there was a knock at my apartment door. Totally unexpected. It was her dad. I hadn't seen Mr. Morgan since that dinner a month ago when he raised a glass and gave this heartfelt speech about how proud he was to welcome me into their family. Now he just looked drained, maybe even a little ashamed. He didn't even bother with a greeting before blurting out, "What's going on with the house?" I crossed my arms and looked him straight in the eye. I'm not buying a house with someone who dumps me by text and sends her lawyer to deal with me. Are you here on her behalf? I asked. His eyes dropped to the floor. No. I'm here because she's keeping us in the dark. One minute she's saying the wedding's off, the next she's losing her mind over furniture bills and credit checks. I just want to know what's really going on. For a second I thought about telling him everything. But I didn't. I just said she ended it. I respected that choice. She can deal with what comes next. He nodded, slow and heavy, then mumbled something like, I told her this was a mistake, and walked away. I watched him go, and for the first time since all this started, I felt a strange kind of peace settle in. But the story was far from over. Not even close. Because what I didn't know back then was that Rachel hadn't just made a snap decision. She'd been planning this. Carefully. Strategically. And I was about to find out the real reason she was so desperate for that house. The first crack in the whole polished act came from someone I hadn't heard from in ages, her cousin, Tyler. We were never tight, but we'd shared a few drinks at family get-togethers and found common ground as the outsiders in her uptight, curated world. Out of nowhere, he sent me a DM. Hey man, sorry about what happened. Didn't realize it was such a mess. Just wanted to say you dodged a bullet. I stared at that message for a long minute before replying. Appreciate it. What do you mean though? His response came back right away. I probably shouldn't say more. Just ask her about Logan. Logan. The name didn't click right away. It was pretty Jen Tyler. I'd met a few Logans at her work events, maybe one or two at those awful wine tastings she used to drag me to on weekends. None of them stood out. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. There was something in Tyler's tone, short, hesitant, like he was testing the waters, that said everything without saying it. This wasn't just a random name. Logan was part of the reason she bailed on our wedding. And deep down, I already had a hunch what that reason was. I jumped over to her Instagram. Most of her account was private now, but one thing stood out, her tagged photos. There was one from an engagement party a few weeks back. The same weekend she told me she was sick and staying home. She wasn't in the picture. But Logan was. His arm wrapped around her like they were already a couple. Way too close. Way too familiar. My stomach churned. While I was sitting at home, heating up soup and finalizing backsplash tiles for our future kitchen, she was out cozying up to some guy behind my back, pretending she had the flu. That was the moment the heartbreak ended. And something sharper took its place. I got focused. I didn't just want to move on. I wanted a clean break. No strings. No shared debt. No trace. First thing I did was call the mortgage company directly to make sure my name was off the application for good. No loopholes. Then I forwarded them a screenshot of the breakup text she sent. They told me off the record that her lawyer had already tried twice to get me back on the application. Too late for that. Then I did something I hadn't done since before we got engaged. I called up Dylan, my old college roommate, now a real estate lawyer in Chicago. He'd offered me a job last year, but I turned it down because Rachel wanted to stay close to her family. This time I told him I was ready. Back on the market. Dylan just chuckled and said, "Took you long enough." We set up a video call for Monday. And still a radio silence from Rachel. Typical. That was always her way. Never face things head on. Everything had to go through someone else, lawyers, friends, pressure tactics. But I was done playing by her rules. Or at least, I thought I was. Then came Sunday morning and with it a whole new bombshell. I woke up to 35 missed alerts. Texts, voicemails, emails. None of them from her. They were all from my bank. Apparently, someone tried to drain our joint savings account the night before, the one we'd set up strictly for wedding expenses. I had seeded that account with $15,000 from my annual bonus. We agreed it would cover deposits for the venue, catering, and rentals. But the bank flagged the transaction as suspicious. Because someone had attempted to move every single dollar into a private account, one that was in her name only. I called the bank immediately. They locked the account right then and there. While I was still on the phone with the rep trying to make sense of what the hell just happened, a new email popped up. Subject line, urgent, regarding wedding funds. It was from Kelsey Brooks, her lawyer. Mr. Fisher, it read, my client is expressing concern over the funds currently held in the joint wedding account. As she has contributed payments into that account, she believes she is entitled to a partial refund. That was a flat-out lie. Rachel hadn't put a single cent into that account. I had all the receipts. Every deposit? Mine. She always kept her own money separate, said it gave her flexibility. Now that the wedding was off, she wanted to clean me out and pretend it was fair. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I called Dylan again. You got records? He asked. Every last dollar, I told him. Then you're solid. But I'll tell you this, if she's willing to pull something like that, she's not finished. And he was dead on. Later that night, I got a voicemail. From Rachel. The first time I'd heard her voice since that gut punch of a text. She sounded shaky. Like she wanted to come across as fragile. Maybe even regretful. Hey. I didn't want things to go like this. I panicked, okay? Everything got so complicated and I didn't know how to tell you. Please don't think I meant to hurt you. I played the message twice. Then I deleted it. Didn't respond. Because here's the thing, when someone realizes you're not afraid to walk away, that's when the power shift happens. And Rachel? She was used to being the one in control. She never saw this coming. Monday rolled around. I signed the offer from Dylan's firm. It started remote with a relocation package if I ever decided to move back to Chicago. For the first time in a while, I felt like I had my life back. But Tuesday? That's when the final twist hit. Jenna called again. Her voice was tight. Strained. I could tell she'd been crying. You need to know. Rachel's saying she's pregnant. I froze. She's telling people it's yours, Jenna added quietly. My chest felt like it caved in. But then she followed it up with, Logan's been staying at her place every night since the breakup. People are starting to notice. My voice was barely a whisper. Did she say how far along she is? 9 weeks, Jenna replied. I did the math in my head fast. 9 weeks ago, Rachel had put herself on some ridiculous cleanse. Wouldn't let me near her, said she was resetting her body before the honeymoon. The last time we were intimate? 10 weeks ago. Barely. Which meant there was a real chance that kid wasn't mine. But that didn't matter to her. She was already building her next trap, one that could tie me to her permanently. Maybe to claim I was the father. Maybe to squeeze out child support. All while cutting me out of everything else, like that house. The worst part? I knew exactly what she was about to try next. And after that call from Jenna, I barely slept. I laid there in the dark, turning it all over in my head. The timing. The manipulation. The real reason she dumped me over a damn text message instead of looking me in the eye. Because that's what this was. Not a breakup, an exit strategy. Rachel didn't just fall out of love. She plotted a clean getaway. She wanted to control the story before I could even react. And now she was claiming to be pregnant. With my child. Except, it couldn't be mine. The timelines didn't line up. We hadn't been intimate for almost 11 weeks at that point. She'd been acting off distant, cold, even a little arrogant. She called that stretch our pre-marriage detox. Said she wanted to feel pure on our wedding night. Back then, I didn't think twice about it. I figured it was just one of her quirks. But now, looking back, it all made sense. She was keeping me at arm's length because deep down, she knew she'd already messed up. Or maybe worse, she'd already crossed a line she couldn't come back from. And Logan? He wasn't just some random fling. He was the real reason behind it all. The next morning, I got another email from her lawyer. This one had a much sharper tone. Due to recent developments, the message said her client was now considering legal action for financial abandonment and emotional distress. And then came the bombshell. She wanted to officially inform me that she was pregnant and that I was presumed to be the father. Presumed. That word hit me like ice water. They were trying to trap me, push me into reacting emotionally. Corner me into saying or doing something they could twist in court. But I didn't bite. I stayed calm. I called up Dylan again and laid it all out, her saying she was pregnant, the doubts about who the father really was, and now these financial threats. He told me to get ahead of it. Be the one to make the first legal move. Start a paper trail that would show she was trying to manipulate the whole situation. So that's what I did. I hired a family and financial lawyer that same day, a local attorney named Debbie Clark. She was sharp. And cold. But cold is exactly what I needed right then. By the next morning, Debbie had a formal letter ready to go and sent it straight to Rachel's lawyer. The letter clearly stated that I denied being the father until a proper DNA test could confirm it. I wouldn't be offering financial support or emotional involvement until paternity was proven. Any attempt to tap into joint accounts or accuse me of emotional abuse would be considered defamation, and we'd hit back with a countersuit. Debbie even added a clause demanding full financial transparency from Rachel just in case she tried to claim I owed her money from the house we were no longer buying. I wasn't playing nice anymore. Less than 3 hours after that letter went out, my phone started ringing. It was Rachel, but she didn't leave a voicemail. She just kept calling. Again and again, 5 times in one afternoon. I didn't pick up. But that evening, Debbie got a call from Kelsey, Rachel's attorney. She said Rachel was upset, claimed she felt ambushed. That we should have handled things privately, not turned it into a legal fight. But Debbie didn't budge. She reminded Kelsey that it was Rachel who brought lawyers into it first and started making threats. My client is simply responding, she said. I wish I could say I felt nothing. But the truth is I felt everything all at once. Anger. Sadness. Mostly regret. Not because it was over, but because I'd ignored so many red flags. Like how she never wanted to combine finances until after we were married. Or how she always had to be the one in charge of our social life. And every time I brought up a prenup, she'd just laugh and say, "Don't you trust me?" But the worst part? Some part of me still wanted to believe this wasn't real. That maybe she was just scared. That maybe Logan was a mistake and she was trying to make it right. But reality has a nasty way of smacking you upside the head when you least expect it. And that punch landed 3 nights later. From Logan himself. It was about 11 p.m. I was home, alone, watching TV when a message popped up on Facebook. It was from someone I didn't know, no profile picture, just the name, Logan. The message said, "We should talk. I don't want to be part of whatever game she's playing." I just stared at it for a while, my hands were literally shaking. Eventually, I typed back, "Talk." He responded right away. "She told me you two were already done. Said the wedding was canceled months ago and you were only helping her get a house because you felt guilty." My blood was boiling. We were engaged right up until the moment she texted me to call it off. That exact day. Not a day sooner. Logan went quiet after that, probably sat with it for 15 minutes or so. Then he hit me with this, "She told me you hit her." I felt like the floor just gave out beneath me. "What?" "Yeah," he said. "That's what she claimed. Said she was afraid of you. She said you had anger issues and used to break stuff when you got mad." I just sat there stunned. I had never, not once, laid a hand on Rachel. I never even raised my voice in a way that could have been seen as threatening. Our worst fights were over time, how she always prioritized her friends and treated our relationship like a scheduled obligation. But physical violence? No. Not even close. So I asked him, "Do you really believe that?" He didn't answer right away. Took his time. Then finally said, "Not anymore." The next morning, I called Debbie and filled her in on everything. She acted fast, filed a protective counterbrief. Basically, it was a legal pre-defense, just in case Rachel tried to pull some abuse story to get sympathy in court. This whole situation was getting darker than I ever imagined. But the worst of it? That landed on Friday. I got an email from the mortgage lender, and it wasn't just a routine update. It was a personal apology. Apparently, Kelsey Brooks had reached out again, asking if they could move forward with the home loan without me. Rachel had tried to pass off some fake paperwork claiming I'd willingly removed myself from the deal with no financial expectations. But the bank flagged it immediately because I hadn't signed a damn thing. She'd forged my signature. I shot the email straight over to Debbie. 15 minutes went by. Silence. Then she called me and said, "This is fraud. We can take this to the police." But I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. At that point, I just wanted this nightmare to end. Still, deep down, I knew it wasn't over. Because Rachel was spiraling. And when someone's desperate, they don't go down quietly. The next week felt like a haze. Every single day, it was something new, some new drama Rachel and her lawyer were trying to stir up. It was exhausting, yeah. But honestly, it felt good watching her lose control. The harder she tried to manipulate everything, the more she ended up exposing herself. That's when Jenna called again. Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. "You're not gonna believe this," she said. "It's Rachel, she's telling everyone she had a miscarriage." My stomach turned. "What?" I didn't mean to yell, but it just came out. "When?" "She posted about it last night. Now everyone's reaching out offering condolences. She's saying she lost the baby right after you two broke up." I just sat there frozen, letting that sink in. The sheer nerve of it left me speechless. Was she seriously using a miscarriage to cover up everything? Trying to twist the story so she came out looking like the victim? Was that her plan now? I didn't know if she was lying or not. But one thing was crystal clear, Rachel was losing it. She was grasping at anything she could to take back control of the narrative. And now she was trying to play the miscarriage card as her escape route. Not long after that, Kelsey, her lawyer, reached out to Debbie again. But this time, their tone had changed. No threats, no demands. They were suddenly all soft and diplomatic. They said things had escalated more than expected. That Rachel was going through some personal struggles and they wanted to avoid further conflict. But Debbie wasn't about to let that slide. She reminded them, plain and clear, about Rachel's attempted forgery on the mortgage documents. And she told them point blank, if Rachel kept pushing down this path, it wouldn't just be about money anymore. If needed, Debbie said, we'll pursue criminal charges. And she meant it. I couldn't help but feel this odd mix of relief and vindication. Rachel had been pulling strings behind the scenes for months. But now everything was out in the open. And I wasn't backing down. She had no idea what was coming next. Later that Friday, the bank called me. But this time, it wasn't just about the mortgage. They'd reviewed the documents Rachel submitted and flagged them for fraud. They had already reported it to the authorities. Now it was a criminal investigation. Rachel had finally gone too far. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. This was serious. I forwarded everything to Debbie right away. She didn't waste a second, scheduled a meeting with the prosecutor's office immediately. As the days rolled by, Rachel's attempts to patch up her image only made things spiral further out of control. Her social media turned into a circus, tearful selfies, cryptic posts about being misunderstood, and vague comments about how people only show up to ruin the good things in your life. She was no longer the confident, entitled woman I had once fallen for. She was coming undone, grasping at anything to stay afloat. I stayed silent. I made a choice not to respond, not to give her anything else to twist. At that point, it wasn't about money or the house anymore. It was about the fact that Rachel believed she could control everything, including me. She thought she could humiliate me and then just walk away without consequences. But the truth? I'd been the one in control the whole time. I didn't need to stoop to her level or wallow in the mud with her. I just had to stay grounded. Hold my line. The call that flipped everything came on a Wednesday. It was her dad again, but his voice was different this time. Gone was the stiff, formal tone of a man trying to play mediator. Now he sounded like someone who'd finally opened his eyes. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I got it all wrong. I should have known something wasn't right. Rachel, she's been lying to all of us." I could barely process it. For years, I'd worked to win that man's approval, bent over backward trying to prove I was worthy of his daughter, only to realize I'd been nothing more than a pawn in her game. Then he laid it all out. How she'd been sneaking around with Logan long before we officially ended things. How she completely made up the pregnancy and miscarriage stories to manipulate everyone around her. How she even borrowed money from her own parents to keep the lies going. I'd been the fool the whole time. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I'll do whatever I can to make this right. We'll fix it." I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to scream at him for not seeing it sooner, for helping her keep the act alive. But another part, the part of me that was finally learning to let go, knew none of it mattered now. Nothing he said could take back the pain, the lies, or the betrayal. But what I could do, what I finally did, was let go for real. I blocked her number. Wiped everything tied to her from my phone and social media. I even returned a few of her things, just the ones I knew she'd actually miss, and left them at her parents' place. She tried reaching out a few more times. But by then I was so far removed from that life and that version of myself I couldn't even pretend to care. And honestly, that was the hardest realization of all. That no matter how much I once loved her, the woman I thought I loved never actually existed. She'd been playing a role the whole time, and I was just another piece in her game. A year and a half has passed since that chaos. From what I've heard, Rachel's life is still in shambles. But I don't really know for sure, and I sure as hell don't care to find out. As for me, I've moved on. I'm rebuilding. I bought a new place, just mine this time. The mortgage is in my name only, and for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can breathe. I feel free. But I'll never forget what this taught me. Never let someone else's manipulation shape the story of your life. Yeah, I was naive. I got played. But I won't let it happen again. Thank you for watching and sticking with me through this tough story. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.